Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Here with some thoughts the morning after Yuriorkis Gamboa beats Solis by a spectacular knockout after knocking him down several times in the fight. Now, just remember, the opinions you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. I am, and I remain, a skeptic of Yuriorkis Gamboa. I understand that this morning his supporters are very happy. I didn't make a video on the fight because I am on the sidelines and looking at the young man. I know his supporters are very happy. If you're a gambler, you probably cleaned up, made a lot of money picking Gamboa not only to win, but likely to win by knockout given his very high knockout ratio. But let's just say that the hype is completely ahead of itself. Gamboa is not Manny Pacquiao, and I know people are comparing Solis's loss to Pacquiao, where he was in the fight for a longer period of time, with Solis's loss to Yuriorkis Gamboa. And I understand Pacquiao obviously has matured and now weighs more than Gamboa and is in a completely different weight class. But let me also add this. Manny Pacquiao is in a completely different class. Listening to HBO and the hype where they're comparing Gamboa to Pacquiao and saying that he's unorthodox like Roy Jones, quite frankly, is, in my opinion, an insult to both Pacquiao and Roy Jones. When you watch a Manny Pacquiao fight, let's just talk logistics. When you watch a Manny Pacquiao fight, you're going to notice that Pacquiao, first of all, has a defensive guard. He actually comes in, especially early in a fight, when he's just figuring out his opponent and he is trying to get the timing, as all fighters do in the early part of the fight. You'll notice Manny Pacquiao puts his hands up, right? He literally wears earmuffs. As fast as he is and as offensively gifted as he is, you'll notice that he actually has a defensive guard. Take a look at one of the best nights of his career, his victory over Oscar De La Hoya. You're going to see Pacquiao comes out, he has his hands up, right? Then, of course, Manny Pacquiao dictates distance, even though he's the shorter man in many of his fights. He dictates distance with a jab. So he's hard enough to hit, right, because he's lightning fast, but he also makes sure that you're away from him because he literally shoots a jab that keeps you at distance. Then you'll also notice he does some other stuff too. He doesn't allow you to time him. He tries to throw your rhythm off. You'll notice, in addition to having his hands up, you'll notice Manny Pacquiao will bounce. He literally will bounce from side to side. He'll move his head like this so that you aren't quite sure where his head is. If you're a feinter, your timing's disrupted. What Manny Pacquiao is doing is he is imposing his rhythm on you. In other words, you have to keep up with his bounce more than he has to keep up with yours. And of course, while you're keeping up with his bounce, you have to deal with the jab, so you're at distance. And of course, you also have to deal with Manny Pacquiao's gifts: blinding foot speed, blinding hand speed, right? So Manny will cloud you with the jab. He's a southpaw, so that jab's a right-handed jab. Then, of course, he has a very accurate left hand that he can drop right behind the jab. So he will hurt many, even gifted defensive fighters early in fights. One Manuel Marquez, right, in both fights. He will get to them early in fights because he's dictating distance. He then drops in a left behind the right, that even a gifted fighter doesn't see or is unable to time early in a fight. Now, compare and contrast that with Yuriorkis Gamboa. I'm telling you, I'm a Gamboa skeptic. I'm going to remain on the sidelines in his fights, and I understand he's an Olympic gold medalist. He's a unbeaten champion, but I'm going to remain on the sidelines in his fights because I don't see the layers of strategy that I see with a Manny Pacquiao. Gamboa has lightning hand speed. He has lightning foot speed. I don't see him establish a jab. He's not keeping anyone at the end of a jab. Quite frankly, he doesn't look that hard to hit to me, whereas Pacquiao actually has a defensive shell. Yuriorkis Gamboa looks like he just takes a step back when you come forward. I thought the key moment in that Solis fight, and it could have been a tragedy for Gamboa, is I believe it's at the end of the first round. Solis throws an uppercut on Gamboa, and I'm just telling you, had that punch landed, this fight would have been very different because Gamboa had no defensive shell. He was just standing there, defenseless against the guy who, quite frankly, did everything wrong against him, right? Gamboa has been countered hard in fights. He's been dropped in fights. Um, Behind the hand speed and behind the foot speed isn't some kind of coherent approach, at least not that I can tell, other than to step backwards when the other guy comes forward, to jump in with combinations that he already has planned, to try to twist his opponent, and to try to throw punches upstairs. You can tell that Gamboa is a bit disorganized just by the number of times that he hits his opponents behind the head. Understand, the referee did a decent job yesterday, but Gamboa easily could have lost a point for hitting Solis behind the head. He did that multiple times. Keep in mind, in an earlier fight, Gamboa had lost, I believe, 2 points for hitting an opponent behind the head. Another time yesterday, Gamboa, who really isn't a guy who banks a lot of rounds by body shots, Gamboa even hit Solis under the belt. The fight had to be stopped for a moment. And keep in mind, we're talking about only a fight that went something like 4 rounds, right? So Gamboa isn't really organized, gets hit too much. Um, Youth, hand speed, foot speed, and power can only take you so far. Let me also say, too, Roy Jones, understand that comparing Gamboa to Roy Jones is apples to oranges. We didn't know for several years of Roy Jones's career whether Roy Jones could even take a punch because Roy Jones rarely got hit. Jones was unorthodox, but a huge part of Jones's game is a defensive construct where he's using distance. He has a, draped left hand. He's threatening a hook. He's feinting you, just like Manny Pacquiao comes in and shoots a jab. Roy Jones would feint you, hint at a left hook to keep you off of him. Jones, quite frankly, in his prime, was a defensive master. Literally the opposite of Yuriorkis Gamboa, right? Jones could fight Jeff Left Hook Lacey, go through an entire fight. This is older Roy Jones, and not get hit with any meaningful punch by Lacey over the entire length of the fight. Certainly not get hit with a left hook. He diffuses his opponent's top weapon. That's not Yuriorkis Gamboa. With Gamboa, it's always a shootout. He's going to win when he fights a lumbering type of opponent like Solis because he knows he's fast enough to counter Solis's jab. And the genius of Gamboa, what he does, his comparative advantage, I shouldn't call it genius, is simply his ability to get leverage on punches quickly. He can transfer his weight quickly, so once he has an opening, he's able to throw very hard punches. The kind of fighter who beats Gamboa easily, in my opinion, is a fighter like Timothy Bradley. I understand different weight class, they're not going to fight each other, Understand, too, that Timothy Bradley is one of the very best in boxing. He's unbeaten for a reason, and he's unbeaten after fighting Junior Witter, Devin Alexander, Kendall Holt, Lamont Peterson. He's an elite fighter who's fought elite competition. My point to you, though, is against a Gamboa, a fighter like Bradley who can have his defense up, literally walk into Gamboa so he's not getting countered. In other words, you don't want to shoot a jab at Yuriorkis Gamboa and give him a chance to counter. You want to walk up to him in your defensive shell. I believe you're going to find that there's nothing else there. If you walk up to him and you're able to block his punches on the way in, you're going to find that he has no defense. He's just there to get hit, and you can literally time him and stop him. As I make this video, Gamboa is unbeaten. I'm just here to say that I believe Gamboa's first loss is going to be a spectacular knockout loss to some opponent. Might happen this year, might happen next year. They're talking about putting him in with Wanma. That'll be an interesting fight because there are some questions about Wanma. But I'll say that a guy who can get close to Gamboa, just have a defensive shell. There are fighters who fight inside. A guy who can just walk up to Gamboa, have his hands up, so when Gamboa throws, let's say, a left hand, the guy has it blocked. If he just gets in close to Gamboa, I don't think Gamboa knows how to fight inside. Quite frankly, I don't think Gamboa knows how to defend himself. He does throw very hard, short punches. His problem is a complete lack of defense, right? Manny Pacquiao has a defensive shell. Roy Jones has a defensive shell. Juan Manuel Lopez has a defensive shell. Someone who can walk down Yuriorkis Gamboa before throwing punches, I think, will pull a huge upset because Gamboa right now, in my opinion, is one of the most overrated fighters in the game today. Um, you know, other fighters might look defenseless, but when you get in close, you'll notice that they actually have defensive tricks, right? The entire Roy Jones school, people like Jean Pascal, Carl Froch, David Hay, these are guys who you'll be surprised when you get in close to them. You're getting hit with elbows. You're getting hit with hooks. As you step close, they're feinting you. They're kind of warning you. Every David Hay fight that I've seen, the opponent seems to think that they can just walk into David Hay and hit him with the jab and bust him up. Then they figure out that they can't land the jab. Then there's the moment in the fight where they realize that Hay actually does have a defensive construct around him, right? I haven't seen that with Yuriorkis Gamboa. All I'm seeing is offense. The time to criticize a fighter is when he's riding high, when he's on top of the roost. I'm just here to say in March of 2011, I'm a Gamboa skeptic. I know he's unbeaten. What I saw yesterday was just offense. I did not see Manny Pacquiao's skill level. I did not see Roy Jones' skill level. Quite frankly, I did not see any kind of elite defensive skill level. I see a guy there who's open to get countered, open to get hit hard. Let me know what you think. I understand this might be an unpopular video. Hey, sometimes you have to be unpopular. Leave your comments for me here on YouTube, and I hope you visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Let me also say, too, there are a group of fighters out there who, for various reasons, I'm just not going to touch their fights. I'll just give a little quick list. Different reasons. Johan Guzman, any fighter who misses weight by wide margins on multiple occasions, I'm a skeptic of. Nathan Cleverly, technical reasons. Big guy, tall guy, suddenly decides he's going to be a knockout puncher, sprouts roots into the canvas. The guy he's fighting, Jürgen Bremer, very, very talented guy. Unfortunately, there's a warrant out for his arrest. He's already served prison time. He, of course, has hit the trifecta. He, bolted on a fight at the last minute against Bebut Shumanov. They're fighters you have to avoid At least gamblers do. Thanks for watching.